Hello and welcome to All for United. Ben here with another Wednesday madness. Yes, it's the United Daily, and we're kicking off this week with how this show's going to look for the next few, actually. Luckily, myself and Dale, who we all know and love, the editor of Stretty News, are going to be joined by former United striker, Academy graduate Daniel Nardiello, who's going to be on the show with us over the next few weeks. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to this as well. And I thought what we'd do for the topic today is we'll piggyback off of a show we done yesterday with Peter Bolton, which was fantastic. It was looking at the future wonder kids at United and those players coming through the academy and the under-23s. Of course, the big news yesterday was that Mason Greenwood signed a new long-term deal. So I thought naturally today we should talk about our attack and how our front line could look in 2 to 3 years' time. Now, the reason why I'm giving it that time frame is because I think we all know that Martial's got a lot to prove at the moment. And if he wants his long-term future to be United, then the next season or two is going to be really telling for him. I also think, obviously, Rashford's coming through with development. United is short on the right-hand side, potentially. Greenwood signed a long-term contract. And Cavani, we're only expecting to be a stopgap for 1 to 2 seasons. So it's going to be interesting where you guys think we might go over the next 2 to 3 years with our front line. And, of course, we're going to be hitting on the Haaland and Sancho rumours in a little while as well. But first of all, if you're watching this on any platform that isn't YouTube, sorry, I've said a lot there. Guys, I'm speaking to you right now. If you're on Periscope, if you're on Facebook, please, can you come over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/AllForUnited. I need just 3 of the many of you watching right now on those platforms to come hit that subscribe button so we can get to 2.2K. So please, can you come and do that? Make us really happy on this live stream at youtube.com/AllForUnited. It's a good job I got my words right there. Otherwise, people will be watching and thinking, what kind of live stream is this? But let's move on, shall we? And let's talk about that news yesterday, Daniel. A striker yourself, a player who came up through the ranks at United too. How would Mason Greenwood be feeling yesterday, putting pen to paper on a new long-term deal?
I think he'll be delighted. I think he's a United fan, isn't he? He's from the Manchester area. He'll be delighted that he's got that long-term contract now. I think it's fully deserved. I think he would have been expecting it. I think he'd just been getting the nitty-gritty of the contract sorted out. But for me, he's a fantastic talent. That he could go. You know, he could be as good as some of the best England strikers that we've seen. That's how talented the kid can be. So for me, I think he'll be delighted. The fans are delighted. I think it's a great signing for Ollie to get, for the next few years.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And Dale, obviously, as a fan of Mason Greenwood, as a supporter of Manchester United Football Club, I know the tweet was one of our own, put pen to paper on a new deal. How did you feel yesterday seeing that news?
I was delighted, and I had a quick scan through Twitter afterwards, see what people were reacting, and it was mixed, and I was scratching my head thinking, you can't keep everyone happy. It's great to see a young player like Greenwood, that promise, come through the academy, sign a long-term deal, and if he hits the ground running and he progresses to the player we think he can, he's going to be at United for a long time. Players like that don't leave United.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Dale, and I don't think there was ever any energy from anyone here, which is why I think it was a surprise that it was announced that Greenwood would be going anywhere anytime soon. So obviously it's nice to have his future with us, but obviously we know he's got United through his veins. Daniel, I'm just wondering, as a player, when you sign a new contract, does that make you change in any way your approach to training, your approach to games? Like, does it give you a bit more stability? What's the importance of having a slightly longer term contract like that as a young player? Does it give you a bit of confidence?
I don't think you can play at that level if you're not confident. That's first and foremost. So I think the kid's got an abundance of confidence. He's been in the press, for good and bad over the last few months. But ultimately, he's super confident. He doesn't need a contract to prove that. I just think he needed a contract just for his own comfort, his own mind, so he can settle in a bit more grow into the team somewhat. So. It depends. I think some players it could have a massive effect on, but for me, I think it will just be a case of now he's got his contract in the bag. He's going to get down to some hard work and cement his place in that starting 11 because, like I said earlier, the kid's got amazing ability and finishing wise, there's not much better in the league.
Let's talk about that hard work that he needs to do, Dale. For you, what does he need to add to his game now? Where does he need to go to make sure that, when he's reaching that 2023, 2024 landmark, that again, United have gone, here's another 5-year deal for you. We believe in you. You're a massive part of this project.
I think you have to understand what Mason Greenwood has to do right now. He's kind of played out wide, and I think a lot of people might think as he matures, he might become more of a centre forward. So right now, he's kind of trying to adapt his game around that. I think he needs to get involved more. I think when he starts games, there's a lot of games where he goes hidden, and this will come. We know when the ball comes in around the box how lethal he is, and it's just about getting those final touches and him maturing. Daniel, I wanted to ask a quick question about young players, like say Greenwood getting a new contract, and say nowadays it's different to when you were coming through the academy. But the amount of money that young players are earning nowadays, how can clubs like Manchester United, who are looking after these young players and want to ensure that they're mindful and they're not idiots, they want to make sure these kids look after themselves and look after their money. How can a football club do that when they're offering, say, I don't know what Greenwood's on, but say 60,000 a week for a young kid? It is crazy money.
I think 75, isn't it? From what I saw the other day, it's been quadrupled or something to 75k. Yeah,
whatever it is. But if you give me that money, I'm 25. I'm gonna go crazy. So how do you tell Greenwood, okay, now keep your head down, keep working hard, but here's 75 grand a week?
It's a really good question, and it's a really tough question to answer, I suppose. I think the key thing with young players now is the surrounding network. It's not just the football club; it's family members, it's accountants, it's agents, it's their financial advisor. It's getting a good surrounding network that can help you keep your feet on the ground and not go crazy. I mean, it's funny enough, I was talking to an ex-United youngster yesterday. So he was a couple of years younger than me. He was a striker as well. And he was saying the first thing he did when he got his first contract and he got his sign-on fee was he went down to London for the weekend and spent it all on him and himself and his mates. So it's tough. It's a really tough question. And it ultimately boils down to the player and their mentality. And if you want to play at the top level for a long period of time, which we all know Greenwood's got the ability to do, he's got to keep his feet on the ground. He's got to have a good network surrounded him. And there's only so much the club can do. There's only so much Man United can do. But ultimately, they've got to put the trust in the player. And they're the ones that see him on the football pitch, on the training field. So they know how much hard work he puts in. And I'm sure Ollie wouldn't have given him such a lucrative deal if some of the rumours we heard about his antics earlier on in the season were true.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that about the network, because as you were saying that, the first thing that triggered in my mind was, as you mentioned there, what happened in the summer with Foden, of course, and how that affected him, and especially affected him at the start of the season. There was a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and I think Ollie managed him pretty well through that period. It was clearly affecting him. It was the first time he was in the limelight. I still think the press made him a massive scapegoat, and the way that he was spoken about was not on whatsoever by the press, by the media. But I also believe that Greenwood, and I said this at the very start, now we see what grit Greenwood has about him, because if he comes out of this and he becomes better, more mature for it, makes changes and adapts and realizes, you're playing for Manchester United, you're always going to be in this limelight no matter what, then I think it will make him it will make him a man. It will turn him from a boy to a man. And Dale, I think we've seen that with Mason Greenwood. I definitely think that he has come on a long way since what happened in the summer. And I also think that this contract, like Daniel said there, is United putting their trust and faith in Greenwood to not balls anything up like that ever again. Yeah, and that has to be a positive.
I think even if you look at the way he's come through the academy, if you speak to anyone that has watched him throughout the age groups, he's always, since a very young age, he's always been the best player of that team. And he's even played years way advanced. So I think even in that shows that he can take responsibility. He was a young player and he was always playing with lads that are older than him. And there's a lot to be said for that. And I think that's why I'm confident that he can become a top player. We're looking now at the likes of, I know we'll probably speak about Martial and Rashford in a while, but I think this kid will surpass them. His finishing is something else. When the ball comes across him in the box, I just fancy him to score every time. And there's not many strikers out there that you can say that about. And another name that you mentioned, Haaland. There's something about that as well. When he gets the ball into the box, I fancy him to score. I feel the same way about Greenwood. No, I'm not for 1 second comparing them or saying that Greenwood is as good as Haaland. It's that instinct. And I think maybe Daniel might be able to speak about that with some of the players that he played with. Van Nistelrooy is one I'm going to probably mention every week when you're on the show, but he's someone that when you got the ball inside the box, you fancy them to score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every single time. And Daniel,
you don't have that yet with Martial, and you don't have that yet with Marcus Rashford. They're different forwards. But with Greenwood, you have someone, I just think he's going to hit the top. I really do.
Yeah, I was going to say, Daniel, just coming over to you with that, as a team, when you've got a striker like that who has that ruthlessness about them, when you go into every game, you must feel that no matter what happens in that match, you're probably going to outscore that opposition.
100%. Whenever I'm watching United and Greenwood's on the pitch, you want the chance to fall to him. And yes, Martial can finish, Cavani can finish, Rashford can finish, but ultimately, you almost see the guys I just mentioned there, sometimes passing instead of shooting. Greenwood ain't passing. If he sees a sighted goal, he's shooting, and more often than not, he's hitting the target. And you've seen how good his finishing is. He always hits those bottom corners away from the goalkeeper. And yeah, as a fan, you want the chance in the box to fall to Greenwood, because you know there's 9 times out of 10 he's going to hit the target and potentially score a goal.
Yep, and they're all good points well made, and I think that's also why, as part of this conversation, we're going to have to talk about when will the time be right for Mason Greenwood to be given that chance to play that number 9 position. I mean, it's all in good time, of course it is, but if we can't discuss it, then we're not going to have a debate on our hands. I want us to have a nice conversation about this. So you can see the title of the video, United Future Frontline is what I've called it. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's... United are linked with every player under the sun. We do know that, obviously, during the summer, there was stern interest in Sancho. We think that's going to continue. We do know that there's interest in Haaland, and Ollie has that relationship with Haaland, and there is a lot of love there between the club, the player, the manager, and the player. We don't know yet about the player to the club. We'll have to wait and see. But we also know we've got Greenwood and Rashford, who are 2 players who are going to be at this club for the next 2-3 years and beyond, hopefully way beyond that. I'm looking at the next decade, seeing out their careers at United potentially. So I think it's only right that we talk about this, Dale, because a lot can change in 1 to 2 seasons. So I want to start position by position. Obviously, on the right wing at the moment, we've got options. Obviously, Rashford can move over and play there. Obviously, we've got Dan James in around the squad. We've signed Diallo and Pellistri. But United fans still seem to think that we need to bring a player in, and also Mason Greenwood's been occupied in that position as well at times. For you, if you're looking 2 to 3 years ahead, do you think United mould Greenwood into an inside forward to play that position, or do you think they go into the market and sign a right winger?
No, you gotta. Greenwood's too good to be trying to mould him into something that he might not be. On the right, I think they need to go out and spend big, because it's been a long time since we've had someone on that right who's been chipping in with goals and a consistent threat. You know, when we sold Nani, even though Nani wasn't maybe the best player to have on the right, but he was a very good one. I think a lot of United fans didn't give him the appreciation he deserved. But since he's gone, we haven't had that threat, and it needs to be fixed. Now, Diallo could come in and fix that, but United fans can't really sit back and say that quite yet. We don't know enough about him. We've seen him in a few games with the under-23s, and he's been really impressive. And hopefully 2 or 3 years down the line, we are speaking about him in this conversation. But I think someone like Sancho, a star to come in, a star that wants that pressure, the number 7 shirt maybe might be available again. But someone that'll come in, Sancho, I think it's written for him. It's written for him. He stayed at Dortmund this year. He might not be making the numbers that he got previously, but I think he was kept at Dortmund against his will last year, and he was definitely looking over at Manchester United, hoping that they'd pay the money for him, but they didn't.
Yep, I am completely with you on that one. Daniel, what about you? Do you think United have it within the club right now to bring someone through to that right-hand side in time for 2 to 3 years to be obviously consistently competing for league titles? That's where we need to be at this point. Or do we need to go out, like Dale said there, and buy someone within their best in class on that right-hand side?
Yeah, I think so. I think the right wing is right inside forward, whatever you want to call it. That's the key, one of the key positions that we need to strengthen. I think Greenwood's done fantastic there. He's shown that he can play there, but ultimately, I think his ability and his star qualities are going to come out when he's playing up front as a front man. Now that might be 2 or 3 years down the line. As he's learning the game, as he's learning off players like Cavani currently, I think he's a great mentor for Greenwood to have. So going out and getting a Sancho this year would be absolutely fantastic. And it's a squad game nowadays. Sancho's not going to play every game, and Greenwood's not going to play every game. So you can rotate that squad, and Greenwood can continue to play in those positions. But if you get a player like Sancho in, who I agree with Dale, who I think he did want to come over last year, just hoping that United would have paid that money. If we can get someone like that in, I think that makes the front three, really, really special.
I completely agree with both of you. I think the perfect pick for that right wing position is Sancho. And I also think this season within this Dortmund side, which has slightly been disjointed, actually Sancho, from a Dortmund fan I was speaking to, has slightly improved his play. At times last season, he really hogged the touchline. Yeah, it is a touchline. He hogged the for some reason I was questioning myself, thinking that line on the side of the pitch, that is the touchline, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is. He was hugging the touchline a bit too much, and at times he struggled to get into games because he didn't come inside. He didn't try and play off of Haaland as much and the midfield players. Whereas this season, apparently, he has really started to come into his own, coming inside. Not playing the key pass every time for the assist, but playing a key part in nearly every move that Dortmund score from when Sancho's on the pitch, which is really, really good to hear and good to see that he's continuing to develop. Of course, as we know, we can look at numbers and judge them season by season, but we can't tell the whole story from that if we don't watch every game. So it's really good to hear from Dortmund fans that actually Sancho is really influential in that team, and they'd be gutted to lose him. Absolutely gutted to lose him. But I agree with Sancho. Dale, I don't know if you want to throw another name in the hat for that right wing spot. Obviously, we wait to see how Amad Diallo progresses, but he's still only 18. Like in 2 to 3 years' time, we need to have the best in class playing in those positions to compete for that league title for me, or be consistently competing for that league title. So are there any other names you want to throw in the hat?
There's none on the top of my head, but I guess with Diallo, the one encouraging thing we've seen is against Liverpool, the way he was able to do one of those Pineda penalties. You know, he had the nerve to do that. So, you know, coming to a club like Manchester United, I know he's joined the academy, but we shouldn't underestimate the amount of money that he cost the club. And that's going to be on his shoulders, and he seems to be dealing with that well. If we're talking 2 or 3 years down the line, I would think someone like Diallo should be in the picture anyway. Should be getting game time, should be competing for a place, if not starting every week. But just something I wanted to add about Jack Grealish, because he's a player that a lot of United fans talk about, and a player that would make a difference. I think when we're looking for this extra attacker, we need to ensure that he's got bundles of pace. Now, I've seen Jack Grealish; he's fantastic, and he plays there with England. I'd much rather an option like Sancho who's going to beat his man. And if we're playing this counter-attacking game, can you imagine a front three, which I'll get to the rest of my options, but they're all English, and they should all be starting for Manchester United, and should be all starting for England. And I think that's something that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has kind of looked at when he came into the job, and looked at the team. Have we any England internationals? If United can have the best front three in Europe, and they both play for United and England, and that should be the aim this summer or next summer.
I think it's really interesting.
I think it only takes one signing. Sorry.
I don't disagree with that either, to really ignite a flame. I think we saw that when Bruno first came in and improved everyone massively around him. If you can keep adding key players and quality players into your squad, transfer window after transfer window, I think it ignites a fire, doesn't it? It gives you more hope. It allows your club to breathe. And I think this is where potentially Liverpool are slightly stumbling now, because they haven't lit that flame for a couple of years. They've had the same squad going slightly stale. So yeah, I'm completely with you on that. And I think Ollie's already shown that he can bring a key player in the summer or in January to make a difference, and they have their targets. I think you're spot on with what you say about Diallo. If we've got the options of Diallo and Sancho as our right wingers going into a season, wow. Like, wow, what a squad that is.
You haven't even seen him play in the first team, and it sounds fantastic.
It does sound fantastic, doesn't it? But also, I think you're right on Jack Grealish. And Daniel, I'm going to come over and hear a little bit from you. I think, to be honest, Grealish for that right-hand side as an option over Sancho potentially isn't the best fit, because I don't think the right-hand side is really his position. But I do think, Daniel, and I'll go back to the game at Old Trafford, where Jack Grealish just put on a show that night for Villa. And I think any player like Jack Grealish who comes to Old Trafford and puts in a performance like that definitely deserves to be in the conversation for playing for this great club, shouldn't they?
Grealish, for me, has been the outstanding player of the Premier League. He is unbelievable. I got to disagree a little bit. I do think he's got an abundance of pace. I think he just goes past players as well. But he wouldn't be on the right side for me. He would be on the left-hand side, or in behind the strikers, or even as a sitting midfielder, because he can play that depending on the opposition that we're playing. For me, Grealish would be up there in the top 1 or 2 signings that I think United should go for, because he's kind of the reason why Villa are where they are in the league is because of Jack Grealish, and there's no other reason for it. It's not Tyrone Mings, it's not Barkley, it's not the kid up front who scored a few decent goals, although albeit all very good players. It's because of Jack Grealish. He's an unbelievable talent, and I would go as far as saying, and I've said this to people before, that I think he's England's best player.
Wow. Putting in mind only a few months ago, he wasn't even getting in the squad.
Exactly.
It's an interesting one, Daniel, and I'll come back to you on this quickly as well. So I think we've had more or less. I'm going Sancho. I'm going Sancho within that right side. So Daniel, if you were to sign Grealish for the left, would you move Rashford and make him more of a right inside forward?
No, for me, Rashford, he doesn't do a good enough job on the right. He's fun on the left. He gets the ball. He's at players. He's attacking. He's getting in the good positions. He just understands that position better. Now, some people might think they're the same position, but I can tell you, as a I played in the inside left a few times. They are not the same position. And as a right-footed player, him playing on the left, it's his dream almost. He's not an out-and-out striker. He can play there. He can do a job. But for me, he's got to play on the left to show his ability. And for me, that's where he's at his best. I would put Grealish. Again, he's going to come in. You can't play every game. There's loads of games. There's Champions League, Europa League, FA Cup, League Cup, Premier League. There's so many games now, and you can rotate that squad. And for me, Grealish, I mean, we've got nothing bar Fernandes in that position. So for me, having a Grealish as well, who can flutter from the left to the right, to sit in midfield, to in behind the strikers, it's a no-brainer for me.
Okay, fair enough. So, but I think all the general consensus here is that if we've got the option to sign Jadon Sancho in 2 to 3 years' time, if we get him this summer, he'll be our right winger and he would be a solid stalemate in the side on that right-hand side if we're putting a full-strength team out, so to speak. So we'll go Sancho on the right wing. Let's go from the left then. Daniel, we're just talking then a little bit about Grealish, but also that at the moment is Rashford's position. So if we're looking ahead 2 to 3 years' time, do you expect Rashford to mould more into that inside forward off the left, or would that be a position again that you look at a Grealish or someone else to come in and make their own?
No, I think Rashford's almost clinically underrated. He's not given enough credit. He's not an out-and-out goal scorer. I know he scores goals, and he'll always get you between 10 and 20 goals a season. But for me, him playing regularly on that left-hand side, there's not many better in the world. He's phenomenal, and give him that service. Put the confidence in him, give him that run of games in the team. For me, that's his position, and it's there for him to make his own over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Dale, what about you?
Yeah, Rashford on the left. I know he's getting a bit of criticism at the moment, but I totally agree with Daniel that he doesn't get the appreciation he deserves, really. I know there's been times where he runs into traffic, and these are all part of his game. But I've said this, I think I said it last week, he's played with a number of nickels this season. And you look at Martial, he's not firing. You look at Cavani, hasn't really played the amount of games that I think we all would have wanted him to, especially at the start of the season. So I think it's not clicking for him all at the moment. But yeah, I think, look, my biggest problem right now is that we're kind of compensating for Martial by putting Rashford on the right. And that's really affecting Rashford's game. If he was given the left role every week, as Daniel said, he's one of the best in his role. You know, how many players would you take over Rashford right now on the left? Seriously, there's not many of them. Very few. Maybe you might just throw Mbappe in there. After watching him last night, other than that, no one.
It's fair enough. A good point. It's made Rashford would be my pick on the left-hand side as well. I just think that he's one player that you just can't shoehorn out this team. As you say, when he's on it, yeah, criminally underrated, as you said, Daniel. I do want to hit on one thing about Rashford with you, though, Daniel, because all the time, if there are question marks about Rashford, it's around his decision-making. And that's something that's thrown out all the time. His decision-making isn't as good. When he's in key moments, he potentially doesn't make a decision quick enough, or he doesn't, for me, at times he doesn't see the game before he decides what to do. So naturally, he waits and is a bit slower and doesn't immediately sort of trigger an instinct to do something that could potentially lead to a better scenario than what he goes to put us in, if that all makes sense. But how difficult is it to have that in your game? Is that something that you're gifted with naturally, to be able to paint that picture and see it and make it happen? Or is it something that you study and you improve over time?
Well, I do think it's a natural talent thing, like you mentioned. I do think some players just have it, but Rashford will learn from his mistakes, and he will continue to develop and continue to learn off players in and around him and listen to the coaches in and around him. I do think, yes, he has been wasteful at times, or he's picked the wrong pass, but I mean, players make mistakes, and especially attacking players make mistakes all the time. You've got to give them that freedom to be able to make mistakes, because all it takes is a moment of genius for him to create a goal or score a goal. So yes, he will learn as time goes on. He's still young, but like me and Dale have both said, he's one of the best in that position in the league. So for me, just let the guy develop, let the guy have fun and enjoy his football.
Is there a certain area, Daniel, just quickly, that you feel like that he can improve to go to that next level?
I do think he can be a bit more greedy in certain situations. He almost slows himself down, and ultimately he can just take a shot on goal. There's plenty of times in his box, and he's got the pace and the touch just to knock it to the side and hit it. And for me, as a forward-thinking player, you've got an opportunity to score a goal. Unless it's obvious to pass the ball, you've got to take that shot on goal, and he'll score more for it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Go on, Dale.
Just on some of the criticism he's getting at the moment about his, some of his decision making and stuff. And at the moment, it's warranted, I feel. But at the beginning of the season, I thought he changed his game around a small bit when he was playing on the left. And he looked like a much more all-rounded player than, say, what Daniel said, a goal scorer, because he's not one of them. I think that goes to show you that this isn't a player that we should be questioning whether he's good enough or not. This is maybe a player that's after having a few niggles, isn't in the best run of form right now. But we only have to look back to the start of the season where he showed that he was maturing as a player. I feel his all-round game was much better. Some of his link-up play, even when he came back from his injury with Bruno, fantastic. His game has developed. I think right now it's probably a difficult time for him as well, shifting positions because of Martial, who I really getting fed up of. To be honest, because I think that you look at Rashford and how good he is and what it's taken away from his game. I think it's taken away more from the team as a result. And then the guy we're talking about starting the podcast, Greenwood, start him. Get starting him every week. Because as we said, you expect goals from him. Half a chance, goals. Martial, you see him every week. How many is he wasting? And I don't mean to pick on him, but it's just he is our goal scoring outlet. And between now and the start of the season, he just hasn't provided the goals. He hasn't provided the goals to be starting games. And I think Solskjaer, maybe my one criticism of him is he's too loyal to certain players. And I think Martial's one of them.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well made. I think obviously everyone's got to play for their positions right now, and especially if the rumours are true with Sancho, if Rashford continues to come on, there's then only one spot left in the team, and that's that centre forward position, which I do agree right now. I think our best front three by a mile, even off form, is Greenwood, Cavani and Rashford, because you've got more players who can be more mobile, work a bit harder. Bruno hates it when there's not people around him pressing. What you get with that three is people around him pressing as well. So I think it just gives the team a whole lot more confidence in working together and carrying out that job and that task that they've got on the ball and off the ball. But I think mouthwateringly, we're all in agreement that if we had the option and we could make it happen in 2 to 3 years' time, that the players out wide for United would be Sancho and Rashford. I love this make-believe world that we can make for ourselves on fan channels and then go back to in 2 to 3 years' time and go, God, where did it all go? Either right or wrong, yeah. But again, just quickly hitting on Sancho again, just a couple of reports that I want to make people aware of. Apparently Dortmund happy to take a hit this summer, looking around more 50 to 70 million than the 120 million that they quoted last time. Also, Sancho still wants that move. And additionally, United are still interested in him. So we will have to wait and see what happens there. Right, centre forward position. Daniel, we kicked off at the start of the show by saying that Greenwood is the future, but there's a couple of names in the hat that I want to throw at you. And one, which I've mentioned before, Ollie's a huge admirer of, Haaland. How big a role might he play in whether Greenwood's the main man up top within the next 2 to 3 years?
I'll tell you, if we sign Haaland, it's going to be extremely tough. I mean, what a choice you've got to play up front, though. And I'll go back to the argument that there's a lot of games to play in the season, but ultimately both players will want to play, especially as they're a bit older, to play most games. And what a tough call that would be. But I mean, what Haaland's achieved so far, and watching him play, I don't see a weak side of his game. He's a phenomenal talent. He's got everything, like Dale said before. He gets a chance in the box, he's scoring. Not to mention the strength, the power, the pace he's got, the ability, the first touch. There's genuinely not a weak part of his game. And whoever signs him, and someone will sign him because he will leave Borussia Dortmund, they're going to be like one of the top teams in Europe. They'll be going for their league title every season, and they'll definitely be going for the European title every season as well. He is that good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And at this moment in time, I don't think it's going to be a transfer that does actually happen this summer, but I believe it will be a transfer that happens next summer, because that's when the transfer fee comes into play, 60 million or whatever it is. That's when that pops up. But I also believe that next summer, everyone will be in for him. So you're at that point where, well, whoever wins that race, as you say, whoever wins that race gets a fantastic player. And if you're telling me now that City are going to be in that race, Liverpool are going to be in that race, United are going to be in that race, and he's going to choose a Premier League club to go to, of course, Chelsea, I assume, will be in it as well. You just want, no matter what you've got in your armoury already, you want to beat them to that player, because as you say, that player is going to make a massive difference. Dale, what about you on Haaland?
Yeah, he's got everything. He's got everything. He's a monster. But I think realistically, speaking about 3 years' time, I'm going to keep it with Greenwood. I don't see Haaland coming to Manchester United. It's going to cost savage money. I think at the end, the amount of money he's going to be demanding. It'll also see United having to deal with Mino Raiola again. I think once Pogba is through the door, United won't want to be dealing with him again. Now it's different when you throw a player like Haaland on the table. I think they'll deal with anyone if they could get him. But I think there'll be so much competition. There'll be so much politics. There'll be so many drops in the media. You know the way Raiola is and stuff. I don't think United are going to want to go near that mess. And there'll be other centre forwards out there if they need to. And you look at Greenwood. I think that the sky is the limit with him. I really do. And we need to nurture his talent. And he is a product of our own as well.
I do think that's an important thing to hit on, actually, the whole Raiola situation. And you know, obviously contract's going to be massive. It's not just about the transfer fee. There might be like the £50 million buyout clause, but if him as a player wants to be on 300 grand a week at such a young age, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult for any club to obviously say no to him. But you know, who does be sensible? United potentially are in the best situation, Daniel, out of all those clubs that want him to be slightly sensible here, put their trust in someone like Greenwood and reap the benefits from that. Again, big if it goes right.
Yeah, 100%. The players that we've talked about and mentioned today, I'd actually go for Grealish and Sancho before Haaland. As good as he is, I just think they're more key positions, key players that we need to you know, have that wow factor in terms of you know, really challenging for the Premier League title. I think they'll add a lot because it's not just about the scoring of goals. I do think Greenwood can do that, as Dale said, a couple of years' time, as long as he's nurtured, as long as he's coached in the right way, he can take that number 9 spot and make it his own. We will need to have another player in and around him that can come in and fill the position. But for me, Sancho, Grealish, the top 2, and then Haaland afterwards. But if he's available and he wants to come to United, it's going to be hard to turn down, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, I think if we can get him, we should go and get him, but we shouldn't be in a bidding war. We shouldn't be overpaying. We should be bringing him in as a player that we can still improve and we can still, you know, take that next level, and he can help take us to that next level as a football club as well. I do believe that there's something in it. There's just something romantic about it with Solskjaer's involvement in Haaland's career, the connection he's got, you know, the fact that although United had a horror show in the summer with Dortmund, we tend to do all right business with Dortmund. Well, they get good money out of us for players who never live up to expectation, but still the clubs can communicate with each other when they want to. And if it's as simple as paying that sort, so to speak, buyout clause, then I don't think United will have any hesitation to trigger that if needed at the time. But I also agree with Dale. If it's not worth the energy or effort, we've got Mason Greenwood there. At some point, he needs to be given a chance and told to go and play for his place and his position in his preferred role. And I think if we don't get Haaland next summer, I think it would be, then I think that's then the time going into that new season to go, right, Greenwood, you're my number 9. Because Cavani probably won't be at the club anymore at that stage. He'll be, that'd be his 2 years done. And you know what, Cavani would be 36 at that point.
Ben, how fantastic would it be having Roy Keane commentate, analyse Haaland for the Premier League every week? Just waiting for drops.
Yeah.
Just waiting for drops. Waiting for, you know, watching some of the footage of Haaland this season. Not footage so much, but some of his scraps in the Bundesliga. He does like a scrap, and he likes getting his face into other people's faces. So I think looking at this United team and what I would like more from it, I can never say no to and more bite. That's what I expected when Jose Mourinho was manager. I thought that we'd become, don't mean to swear, but a team of bastards. We weren't necessarily what I pictured. I wanted a successful team at that, but I think players like Haaland, we've seen it with Bruno, that kind of bite, and that's what I want to see. So if he did come, I would look forward to a bit more of that.
Well, fascinating stuff, guys. I'm excited for the future. Again, who knows where we're going to be in 2 to 3 years, but if that front 3 is consisting of Sancho, Haaland and Rashford with Diallo, Greenwood, all in and around there, and probably Daniel James somewhere as well, probably still about at that point. But still, fantastic options, brilliant options, and we've got a chance to go places if that is our attack for sure. Guys, thank you for getting involved in the live chat. Again, wherever you're watching right now, if you could please just hit the like button on this video and press subscribe to All for United. Please do that, because by the end of this video, I want to end this video now and I want to go on and have a look at our subscriber count and be over 2.2k, and that's thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for your support and subscribing. We'll be back tomorrow as we do a bit of a tactical preview for the Real Sociedad and United game, which is obviously tomorrow evening. Neil and Barry will be joining me, and remember, on Friday we've got a La Liga journalist who's responsible for a lot of the Jules Koundé scout reports that you see online. He's going to be joining me to chat about why United should break the bank to make him Maguire's partner. Why was that such a tongue twister? I don't know. Nards, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Dale, thank you again. I'll speak to you guys next week. Next Wednesday, the guys will be back with me at 12:15. For now, guys, stay safe. Take it easy. Get in the comments your thoughts on everything we've covered, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.